As the only daughter of Senator Alexander Sinclair, Eleanor Sinclair had lived her entire life in a gilded cage, where everything was perfect, but she was shaken by the invisible chains of duty and purity. She had been brought up to be a perfect lady, a pearl that had been preserved until the day she would be used as leverage in a marriage of power and advantage. At the age of 23, Eleanor had never experienced the warmth of a lover's touch, never been kissed, and had never even dreamed of freedom. Her life had been meticulously planned, with every step dictated by her father's ambitions, and she had always complied until the day Senator Sinclair entered her room, his face pale. His eyes are filled with fear. "You're getting married, Eleanor, and there's nothing else we can do." Her abdomen, the man he had chosen for her, was not a nobleman or a stranger, but Leon Hawthorne, a ruthless businessman who could make the world bow at his feet with power and wealth. She was married and looked at her father, expecting an explanation, but she knew deep down that his political empire had fallen and his reputation was in ruins, and that she was the last asset he could trade. At that moment, Eleanor realized her life would never be her own again. She should have fought back, screamed, or pleaded with her father not to do this, but his defeated eyes told her that there was no choice. Eleanor sat still, her wide eyes fixed on the future, but inside she felt nothing but a void. Her father's words replayed in her mind, each syllable cutting cold, merciless slashes into her soul marriage. This line was already written. Her father needed a way out, and that way out was her. He had lost everything, his political supporters had abandoned him, his name was tarnished, and his debts hung over him like a guillotine. Leon Hawthorne acknowledged that his voice sounded hollow, as though even he was incredulous at what he was saying. Eleanor had heard of a dangerous man who had the precise things that everyone desired: wealth, power, and unrelenting ambition. She had once seen Leon Hawthorne on the cover of a financial magazine. He had dark, piercing eyes and a sharp, commanding face. He wasn't a charming aristocrat, he was a businessman, a predator in the corporate world, and a man who never took no for an answer. He didn't just own companies, he owned people as if they were commodities to be traded, and now she was the commodity. "This weekend is the wedding," her father whispered, averting her eyes. Eleanor Sinclair would vanish in a matter of days after a wedding, transaction, and contract signed in cold black ink. She would become Mrs. Leon Hawthorne. The absence of flowers at Eleanor's wedding felt like a sentence being passed down. No genuine blessings or laughing, just a chilly deal between two men, one desperate and one in charge. She signed her name on a piece of paper that locked her fate forever, spoke in vows she didn't believe, and wore a dress she didn't choose. There was no celebration, no honeymoon, just a sleek black car waiting to take her straight to Leon Hawthorne's estate. The towering glass and stone structure loomed under the night sky, as cold and unyielding as the man waiting for her inside. Her breath hit Ed as she heard the door open behind her. Leon Hawthorne stepped inside, shrugging off his jacket, loosening his tie, and his gaze was dark and intense, trailing down her form with quiet possession flashing behind those steel-like eyes. "Did you really think you'd sleep alone tonight?" His voice was low-edged with danger, cutting through the silence like a blade. Eleanor took an automatic step back, but her back struck the icy, unforgiving wall. There was no way out, and tonight this beast would take the last of her. Morning light filtered through the heavy curtains, softly glowing Eleanor's bare skin as she let Elle lie motionless among the tangled sheets. Leon moved forward slowly and deliberately, like a predator playing with its prey. His eyes were calculating and sharp, and his head was slightly tilted. "I always take what's mine." Her heartbeat pounded against her ribs. Her body hurt and was fatigued, but what worried her the most was the remains of last night clung to her skin, his perfume lingering, the emptiness settling deep inside her. The ghost of Leon Hawthorne's hands tracing every inch of her body, his warmth remaining on the pillow, and his presence everywhere. His presence encircled her like an unseen chain throughout the room. The thing that scared Eleanor the most was herself. She hadn't resisted him, hadn't pushed him away, and worst of all, She had responded as the door swung wide. She should hate him, should despise him, but instead she grabbed the covers closer, trying to steal the tremors coursing through her. Leon said, "Did you sleep well?" in a low, playful tone. His hair was damp from a shower, and his clean black shirt was open at the top, revealing the strong lines of his chest. His eyes met hers, and a smirk tugged at the corner of his lips as if he could read every thought going through her head. Eleanor tightened her hold on the blankets. "You made me, don't lie to me, Eleanor. You moaned beneath me and welcomed me." Leon laughed a dark, knowing sound and walked closer, slowly, deliberately, studying her the way a predator observes its prey. He repeated, leaning down his face, now inches from hers. The days that followed passed in a reality Eleanor had never dreamed of, and although she wanted to push him away and reject it the most, horrifying fact of all was that she couldn't. His voice had lowered to a whisper more than once, and her breath caught. Not only did Leon take her on their wedding night, but he also surrounded her with a terrifying kind of tenderness. He never let her leave his grasp, not as a tyrant, but as a man who was afraid of losing the woman he loved. His touch was no longer about possession, but something far more dangerous, as if without her he wouldn't know how to breathe. Eleanor couldn't deny that she felt it either, because every morning when she woke up, breakfast was already waiting, not prepared by the servants, but by his own hands. A cup of tea was brewed just the way she liked toast, with perfectly crisp fruit sliced with care, as if he had remembered her preferences long ago. "You made this yourself?" she asked one morning, surprised, as she stared at the plate in front of her. Leon simply shrugged. Eleanor had once believed that Lon only knew how to take care of her, but the night she fell ill, he stayed up beside her, applying cool cloths to her burning skin and holding her as if her slightest pain could destroy him. Pride flickered in his dark eyes. "You're my wife. Who else would take better care of you?" He never needed to say, "I love you," because it was evident in every gesture when she walked through the garden, watching from a distance, always ready to shield her when the wind picked up. As she lay in his arms during the long nights, Eleanor knew there was no turning back. Eleanor had barely finished her tea when the dining room doors opened and the butler walked in, his face grave. "Sir, there's a call. Your lawyer says it's urgent." Leon Hawthorne had claimed her body that first night, but even more horrifying was the fact that he was gradually taking her heart as well. Leon put down his coffee, his gaze growing gloomy as he grabbed the phone. Although she couldn't hear the entire discussion, "What the hell is he doing?" His voice became sharp, "No, no," and as the connection ended, he threw the phone onto the table, his countenance unreadable. Eleanor could feel the anxiety washing off him in waves. "Is our contract insufficient to keep me here, or does your father want you back or frozen?" Despite her hushed speech, her concern was clear. Leon gave a chilly chuckle. "We're going to see him now." The glass skyscraper where her father waited loomed over them, sterile and imposing. Senator Alex Sinclair rose to his feet the moment they entered the boardroom. He looked thinner than before, but his gaze was still sharp and commanding. "Sinclair believes he can use lawyers to take you from me. He forgets you're no longer his. Come home with me, Eleanor. You don't have to put up with this." Leon's grip on her waist tightened, his voice cold as steel. "She's not going anywhere." Her father met Leon's gaze head on. "This contract can be undone. I will fight until it is." Leon only smirked, tugging Eleanor closer. "She's not some possession for you to reclaim." Then he bent down, murmuring into her ear, "Tell him, Eleanor." She took a deep breath under her father's expectant stare. She spoke slowly, but firmly enough both men turned to look at her, but she didn't meet their eyes. She focused only on her own breathing, her own decision. She turned to her father, her voice calm but firm. "You can't use me as a trade anymore." Then she faced Leon, pain flick ing in her gaze, but no longer fear, "And neither can you." Silence filled the room. Eleanor turned away, stepping toward the door. No one stopped her, and for the first time in a long while she felt free. Leon had searched everywhere. He knew Eleanor couldn't have gone too far. Then he remembered one evening she had once told him about a place she always went when she felt lost, a lavender field just outside the city. When he arrived, the world felt different. The golden hues of the setting sun bathed the lavender field in a surreal glow, but his eyes found only her standing there, lost in thought. The breeze lifting strands of her hair, Eleanor looked almost untouchable, like a dream he was afraid to wake from. She was still, her gaze lost in the horizon. The wind played with her hair, and in that moment Leon realized she had never looked more breathtaking. He stepped closer, but said nothing. Eleanor knew he was there. She didn't turn around, only murmured, "Why did you come looking for me? You are the one thing I can't afford to lose," Leon said in a low, shaky voice. "You're not a transaction, Eleanor." She laughed quietly, not in a mocking way, but thoughtfully, and then she turned to face him. Her eyes had a softness he had never seen before, and Leon proved it. As Leon drove Eleanor home, she remained silent the entire way, only staring out the window as though she was still engrossed in the lavender scent. He didn't encourage her to talk because he was worried that she would run away again. When the car came to a stop in front of the estate, Eleanor got out, but she hesitated at the door. "Do you think that bringing me back means you get to keep me? I don't know how to love you the way you deserve, but I know I can't exist without you." Her voice was soft and almost distant, and he clenched his fists because he knew he would lose her if he didn't act right away. Without hesitation, he dropped to his knees at her feet on the doorstep of their house. Eleanor froze. Eleanor looked down at him, meeting his pleading gaze, but she didn't respond right away. She had once been controlled and forced to stay, but this time she wanted him to understand that love wasn't about possession. She knelt down beside him, her fingers brushing against his face, her voice gentle but firm. "If you truly want me, Lon, then prove it, not with words, not with possession, but with the way you choose to love me." As she spoke, something inside her changed. She had spent so long fearing him, fighting him, but now she saw a man who wasn't a monster, a man trembling on the verge of losing her. A fleet of black sedans came into the driveway as the estate gate opened the following morning, signaling the arrival of her father's solicitors. Eleanor watched from the window as men in dark suits emerged with paperwork that represented her father's authority. Leon stood. "He truly believes he can take you from me," as evidenced by his stiff frame, dark, unreadable eyes, and low, dangerously chilly voice next to her. Eleanor remained mute and reassured him silently by placing a kind hand on his arm. Then, she went outside to find her father's lawyers waiting sternly and formally. "Come with us, Eleanor. This contract can be broken. Your father has planned everything to get you home." She looked at them and then back at Leon, the man who had once pushed her into his world but was now standing there waiting, unsure and afraid. Eleanor took a deep breath before moving to stand next to Leon. Her voice was calm but firm, and she chose to remain silent. The lawyers looked at each other, then turned to go, leaving without saying anything more. The estate gates closed behind them. 1 month later, Eleanor was sitting in the little garden behind the estate when a car pulled up at the gate. She raised her head, her heart tightening as she saw her father step out. He looked older, his hair had more gray, and his eyes no longer held the pride they once did, but instead there was only deep regret. Leon didn't wait. He pulled Eleanor into his arms and kissed her, not like a man claiming possession, but like a man who had fallen irrevocably in love. She stood waiting as he walked up to Eleanor. His voice faltered. "I was wrong," but she remained silent, letting him go on. "I treated you like a pawn, forcing you into this marriage without considering your happiness. But do you know that?" He took a shaky breath, "and for the past month, I've wondered if I even deserve to call myself your father anymore." Tears filled her eyes, but she just smiled and stepped forward, putting her arms around him. "You will always be my father," she whispered. "You didn't condemn me to misery. I found someone who cherishes me, who loves me in ways I never expected for a moment." Things improved as Senator Sinclair tensed up and then carefully gave his daughter his first embrace in years. 3 years after their marriage, the lavender fields extended endlessly beneath the golden hues of the setting sun, and Eleanor was hugged by Leon, who worshipped her with the kind of devotion she had previously feared. As 2 little figures ran through the sea of flowers, Eleanor stood there with her hand entwined with Leon's, watching as their twin children, a boy and a girl, giggled as they chased butterflies, their laughter resonating like the sweetest melody. Leaning her head on Leon's shoulder, Eleanor felt his protecting arms encircle her. "Are you happy?" he said, and she grinned while keeping her eyes fixed on their kids. This was the happiest ending they could have ever imagined. From an unwanted marriage to a relationship that was once based on obsession and control, they had discovered true love that was unwavering and true, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of lavender mixed with their children's laughter. "I've never been happier,"